Hi there, I am just on a little stroll in the woodland. You can see this beautiful, lovely woodland that I've got surrounding me. The bluebells are out now. There's lots of different birds here and different species, and I've just taken a little pause on this lovely little, I don't know if you can see it, little tree branch. There's all sorts of useful pieces of furniture in the woodland which I'll quite often use with clients as well. But I just wanted to take a moment really just to pause and chat with you about burnout. So it's coming up a lot for people at the moment. I think the whole getting started again and kind of adjusting to post-lockdown life, even though that feels like it was really far away, that actually all these new little adjustments like quieter offices or getting back to the routine of everything kind of being up and running again, or maybe even like a business has taken off, or you've got a particular project that's reconnected, and people might find themselves back in that kind of hurtling mode as well. And I put a post on LinkedIn the other day about burnout actually, and I just kind of invited people to think about the fact of how many people are sat out there now, perhaps it's you, perhaps it's a colleague, a friend, a family member, who are just teetering on the edge of burnout. And if you don't know much about kind of the term burnout, then I guess just to give you a little flavour of it, this is a term that really reflects the issue that happens a lot in high stress work places, but also not to do just purely with the workplace and the work culture, but it might be just to do with that work-life balance stuff. And I don't simply mean like being able to switch off at 5. I mean that we have lots of different roles and responsibilities in our lives, like maybe supporting friends or being a carer or a family member. Perhaps you've got your own stuff that you want to kind of fit into that, as well as the busy stuff that we have in work as well. And burnout really happens when we have unmanageable workloads or unmanageable expectations, and that could be in work or life, you know, like responsibilities and roles that maybe we love doing some of them, but maybe it's still a bit of a burden for you as well. And burnout comes when we're running on those stress levels for too long, or we've got high anxiety, or it's affecting your mood because you're sort of self-berating and getting frustrated because you don't feel like you're really achieving as much as you'd want to, or you feel like you're not getting a second to kind of talk. And over time, the brain's just like, no, we've had enough of this. And so it gives you more stress signals, or it perhaps makes you run down and you get more physical kind of ailments or illnesses. And perhaps any of you out there with like fatigue conditions will know the impact of this. Is our body's really good at giving us these clear signs of when actually we need to slow our pace down, and it does that because it wants us to have the best life that we can and to care for ourselves. And sometimes we're not so good at kind of prioritizing ourselves at the forefront, and we feel like we've got to fit loads and loads of stuff in, when actually if we slowed the pace or we put a little bit of a top-up mechanism in here and there, it would actually make life easier. But the issue is that when we're in that zone of kind of just feeling like we've got to keep going and feeling like there was lots of priorities and expectations, that it can feel really hard to get off that kind of treadmill as well. And I think one of the sad things is, even though we've got so much better at talking about mental health, particularly in the workplace and with our families and friends, that there's still quite a lot of stigma around burnout, and that particularly if you're looking and thinking like everyone else has got their stuff together, even though they're inside kind of like paddling under the water but looking calm above it, that actually it's easy to think, oh well, I can't mention anything because everyone else is working hard, or this is an issue that everyone faces, this is just how it is. And that kind of leads to quite a dangerous culture, either in your family and friends or in the workplace, because no one's really speaking up and going, this is really hard, or we need to find a solution to this in some way. And so we just kind of like keep going and going and going, whether it's your own business, whether it's the workplace, or it's family responsibilities. And then our mind and body starts giving us those like stress signals, things like rashes, or just total fatigue, until we get that emotional meltdown, or our body just goes, no, we're going to kind of give you some illness that's going to slow you down and actually help you just to take some rest here. And of course, we really want to avoid that, and actually we can avoid that, and you can find strategies that will work for you, that are flexible around the ever-changing kind of life. But we tend to have too high a threshold when it comes to our expectations around how far we get before we kind of put something in place. And actually learning to just move the benchmark back a little bit further, learning what those signs and symptoms are for you. So whether it's that you begin getting headaches, or perhaps it's that you get a bit touchier with people, or you get confused, or you start missing things, that actually when you notice these signs and symptoms for yourself, that they become like the new alarm bell. So rather than you have to feel so fatigued or overwhelmed, or stressed in some way, that you almost kind of move the line, the parameter back to when you start putting mechanisms in place for yourself. Ideally, you'd be doing things that are going to help you to top up your fuel in some way. And what I mean by that is we've all got energy levels, we've all got resources, whether that's the knowledge that we have, or the habits that we keep, or what we choose to prioritize, and how we're generally feeling kind of through the day, how we're burning our fuel in terms of our emotions as well. And so the more you can do regularly, even if it's kind of small little steps to top yourself up, to feel good, or to feel like you've got enough reserves in the bank to be able to survive the challenges of the day, that's really going to help. And nature's a great way, just being out in nature, that's a really good way of just naturally lowering that stress level. So something that I will do is just bring myself out on a walk. I don't necessarily have to be in like stressed or overwhelmed at all. In fact, although that will help, I aim to avoid that. But actually being able to take myself out into the woodland and just walk, like just the action of walking and processing, allowing my thoughts to kind of weave through the trees and let the ones go that are bothering me, or kind of focus down, take a pause like now to kind of really think and consider something, and maybe just kind of sit and be very present in my mind and body as well. Because another thing about this kind of hurtling and overwhelm mindset or body set is that we're really kind of almost like a ghost outside of our body. We're not really checking in enough to be like, oh, that feels a bit tight there, or actually I've not realised that I'm holding my shoulders really stressed. So a plane coming over, can't see it, but give you a little view of where it is. We really don't always sort of make habit around checking in with ourselves and noticing the buzz or the kind of noise of chaos and chaotic thinking within our brains as well. So even just going to myself like, oh, what am I feeling right now? Like, actually, am I feeling anything? Am I stressed? Is my breathing kind of a little bit more shallow because I'm thinking about a problem rather than kind of focusing on the things, the resources that I have for solutions as well? And often when I meet someone in overwhelm, that's kind of the bit before burnout. People will just say, well, this is just the way it is, I can't change anything at all. And it's really easy to feel that way when your body's in that heightened kind of stress and cortisol kind of pumping through your veins to kind of keep you going, because our brain's just thinking, right, we've got to kind of get through this. And so I'd always say is when you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to take on board some of the stuff that JK is saying, I'm going to be curious about the ways in which I can be a bit more proactive with my well-being, I would always invite you first to kind of get yourself into a more relaxed state of being, whether that's that you go for a run or have a laugh with your friends, dance in the kitchen, get out. And that will just allow you to be in a much more resourceful state, and kind of feel much clearer about the things, the opportunities that you have. Like if you imagine that your head's really whirling already and you're full of thoughts and you've got your diary and your to-do list of things to do, and then you suddenly go, right, now we're going to think of solutions for my well-being, when you're in this like state, that makes it a lot more difficult for yourself. So I would always say, like, if you're thinking about it as a process in terms of like, right, I'm going to start thinking about like listing out or all the things I could do possibly that would help my well-being, kind of big and small. I'm going to think about that, like think first about, but first I'm going to have a relaxing bath, or I'm going to listen to like my favourite tune, or just go out and sit and listen to the bird song for a little bit as well. That will make life so much easier, and you'll know when the shifts happens, you'll know when you've gone into like a much more relaxed state of being, and actually learning and knowing that for yourself in terms of going, oh, like, right, okay, I'm out of the like hurtle now, and I'm into kind of much more logical thinking. And that's this part of our brain, amongst other parts, obviously, not just purely one part of our brain, but when we're in that kind of prefrontal cortex of our brain, that allows us to think in a much more kind of logical, peaceful, easier way than when we're totally hijacked by that amygdala part that kind of goes into the fight and flight as well. So one of the things I would say is begin to think and be curious about how you talk about like burnout. As I say, if you're in a workplace, then modeling this, if you're a leader, is a really kind of important and valuable thing, mainly for yourself if you're facing it, but also for other people as well. And I appreciate that might not always feel easy, particularly if your workplace feels quite toxic, or there's a culture around like busy equals good, and actually understanding that for yourself. One of the ways you can begin to do that without actually kind of going, I'm on a sinking ship and everything's going to get overwhelming, I'm going to make myself ill, because we won't